If you think the world is full of evil people, you will meet many evil people. And in other words, unconscious people. And even people who are on the brink or who are halfway between conscious and unconscious, when you come together with them, your belief will pull them into unconsciousness. And that's karma. So karma is the complete absence of conscious presence, and so it's automatic. It plays itself out. And time does not free you of karma. That is a misperception, that if you only have enough time, eventually you can become free of karma. Karma renews itself and repeats itself. It's a wheel. And so the only thing that can free you of karma is the arising of presence. And how is it that for some person presence arises? I cannot tell you why. I only know that at any point in the wheel of karma, presence can come in. It can happen to a criminal in prison, condemned to death. It can happen to somebody who's never heard of anything spiritual. It can happen to somebody who has been meditating for 30 years, or not happen to the same person who has been meditating for 30 years. So, in your own life, I can see from what you're saying that presence has already, I can sense that, presence has already come into your life. And presence frees you from karma, not all at once. Karma has an enormous momentum, meaning the patterns in yourself, the thought patterns, the emotional patterns, the reactive patterns. There's enormous momentum behind that. But as presence arises, gradually karma diminishes the energy behind it diminishes. And gradually you experience a fading out of those patterns. They become weaker. You're no longer completely in the grip of those patterns. So as presence arises, there's a gradual fading out of karma. Not that it matters that much anymore, because once you are present, you can, as the previous questioner said, when we were talking about certain thoughts still arising, certain negative thoughts, that's still part of the karma, the old patterns, the unconscious habit patterns inherited. They still arise, but it's no longer problematic, and they no longer cause the suffering that they would have caused before, because they are seen in the light of awareness. So the light of awareness arises, and in the light of awareness, the patterns no longer dominate your life. They no longer run your life. And if occasionally it happens that the patterns do take over, then after a little while your presence returns and say, well, there it was again. Pain body is part of karma, which may be strong in some people, not so strong in others. And so as presence arises, you are freed from karma. And then you have another completely different factor coming into your life. And so, for example, for a person to become free of collective karma, you need a considerable amount of presence for that to come in, to remove, and it then will remove you in one way or another. Either internally, you find yourself completely free. You might still live in a violent society, but internally you would be free. There is a possibility you can have a holy man or woman living surrounded by violence. It's possible. It's rare, but possible. Or very often it happens that life removes you out of there and you find yourself somewhere else. So let's say vast collective karma, for example, in the case of, let's say, you have the Taliban there, you have all kinds of unconscious movements, you had Soviet communism, you had National Socialism in Germany, and for a person being born into that, And not being drawn into that unconsciousness requires considerable presence. So not that many people, for example, in Germany, when Hitler came to power, not many people were able to remove themselves. Some artists, some writers, they left, they could see what was happening, and they were strong enough not to be identified with the collective when there had been a tradition of obedience to authority for hundreds of years, a tradition of following your leader, and so on. To take yourself out of that, collective karma requires considerable presence, but some people had it. So it is our destiny then to go beyond karma by being the receptacles for presence. All you can do to be helpful in this world and help others is those people that you come into contact with. Everybody in this who is awakening will find that sooner or later they become a kind of teacher to others. And what a spiritual teacher does, the teacher points out the possibility of awakening out of identification with unconscious patterns, which means the spiritual teacher teaches you to go beyond karma.